الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحمد الله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين. I would like to welcome you all to the AIS Halaqa that we started about 5 weeks ago. Our goal of the Halaqa is to foster better understanding of our religion. The title here is لعلهم يفقهون, that they might understand. And the key in our religion is to understand what our obligations are. And hopefully with better understanding of our religion, we will have a better recognition and realization of our responsibilities towards Allah, ourselves, our family, and our community. So this is an attempt from us to have a dialogue, and that's why we break it into half the time for presentation, and then the other half we will have open discussion. We hear your viewpoints, maybe a subject that you like us to cover in the future. So feel free to let us know so that we can be in a better position to serve you. My presentation this morning or this afternoon in Cairo time is to have a commentary on Surah An-Naml, and the specifics that I would like to cover today is the narrative of Solomon and the hippo. 2 weeks ago, I covered the reflections and the narrative of Prophet Solomon and the ant, An-Naml. But today we will talk about Al-Hudhud and the conversation between Prophet Solomon and the hippo. Let me just give a little introduction about Prophet Solomon. Prophet Sulaiman was the son of Prophet Dawood, alayhi salam. Prophet Solomon was a great king of all times, actually, and ruled over present Syria and Palestine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَوَهَبْنَا لِدَاوُودَ سُلَيْمَانَ نِعْمَ الْعَبْدُ إِنَّهُ أَوَّابٌ. And to David, we gave Solomon an excellent servant. And here really, you know, we reflect upon the word ni'ma al-abd. Al-abd, servant of Allah, is a great honor. That to be the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah in the Quran have honored our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by the word abd, when he says Subhana alladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. So abd is a great honor of a human being to be the servant of Allah. But you can see here, even it's not only any abd, but ni'ma al-abd, the word ni'ma, excellent servant. So it's really a big elevation to Prophet Solomon, that Allah said to him, ni'ma al-abd. And then the ayah continue. Indeed, he was one repeatedly turning back to Allah. Innahu awwab. And really to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously is really what make the servant is deserving to be an excellent servant of Allah. So as we read in the Quran, each word has a reflection, has a meaning, that it tells us that we need to repeatedly turning back to Allah in everything, in every day of our life. And that's how we can be really excellent servants. And then Allah has given Prophet Solomon a particular kingship that no one had ever have in this life. And uh, and Allah said that according to the Quran, Allah has wind, jinn, and animals subservient to him. And he never gave that to anybody. وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون. And gathered for Solomon were his soldiers of the jinn and men and birds. So he gave him that power, that all men and jinn is under his control. He had the control and ability to talk to all animals and jinns. This was a unique quality of Prophet Solomon. And in the other halaqa that I presented 2 weeks ago, we talk about his conversation with the ants. And we mentioned that Allah said in the Quran, فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِنْ قَوْلِهَا, meaning that he understood what the ants said when tried to warn other ants to really go homes so that they don't get destroyed by the soldiers of Solomon. So and then he had the same the ability to talk to different birds and animals, and including the ant. And in our discussion today, really have great conversation with the hudhud. Prophet Solomon used the power of these creators to perform extraordinary tasks. Allah have given him this ability not just for the sake of it, but because Allah give him the tools and hold him responsible to do extraordinary tasks, because give him the ability to do it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving every one of us certain talents to do what he or she can do for what Allah has bestowed upon every one of us. So every one of us has the ability and has the responsibility to act upon what Allah has bestowed upon every one of us. Moreover, he traveled miles of distance in minutes by air. And the Quran narrated a few of his stories from this beautiful and only imaginable life for us to reflect and ponder. And that's what we will attempt to do and reflect in the next 10 or 15 minutes. The hudhud is the Arabic word which means hopper, bird. The hudhud is a very unique bird, as the Quran narrates its story. By reading the text of the Quran, one concludes that this bird has extraordinary qualities. Allah have given this bird qualities that is not available to men. Allah has blessed Prophet Solomon with his exceptional quality that he can understand bird and included in it in his army to work for Allah's sakes. So the work that we do should be for the sake of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah. And that's really an important point to reflect upon, that whatever we do, we should do for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for anything else. Astonishing is that this bird, that it traveled miles and brought news from remote areas and keep an eye on what's going on. The Quran beautifully narrates its communication with Prophet Solomon, where it performed a duty to spread Allah's message. So Prophet Solomon used the tools he has for only one purpose, is to spread Allah's message. And that's the best that any creature can do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. That's the best you can do. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Let us talk about the communication in these few verses between Solomon and the Hopper. Once Solomon was conducting a usual meeting for getting reports from creators in his control, he found that the Hopper, one of his army, was missing. So he said all. And that's the first conversation. وتفقد الطير فقال ما لي لا أرى الهدهد أم كان من الغائبين. He, Solomon, inspected the birds. And here we can see that if you are a leader, you need to really have great attention to the people that working under you. You need to keep an eye on everyone in your team under you and see what they're doing and being able to assess what's going on with them. So he said, what is the matter that I see not the hopper? ما لي لا أرى الهدهد أم كان من الغائبين, or he is among the absentees. And it's really amazing to see that the Prophet Solomon is able to look at all the birds and being able to realize that only one bird is missing. Could you imagine that? I mean, the accuracy of his inspection and his control and his followers by looking at a single bird is missing, okay? So just think of that. And then the Quran continue, لأعذبنه عذابا شديدا أو لأذبحنه أو ليأتيني بسلطان مبين. I will certainly punish him with a severe punishment or slaughter him unless he brings me explicit authorization. You see here that the Prophet Solomon, as a leader, he looked at the members of his team and then he is in position to assess what is happening, and if there is something that's done wrong, then he will have punishment. There is consequences of the action of the individuals. If the individuals is without a reason, then there is consequences. He will be punished. Okay, so Allah tell us that the people that working for you and then realize that if they don't do their job, there will be consequence. Action. Let it to go, but you make something that's in order to there is reward, and that's the way things work. Is that if you do well, you get reward. If you don't do well, you get punishment. But then he left one option, أو ليأتيني بسلطان مبين, meaning that you don't come to the final conclusion without giving the individual the opportunity to defend him or herself. That's the way it is. He didn't say that I'm going to punish him without listening to him. So the answer or the lesson that we learn is that we need, before taking a final action, is to give the individual the opportunity to defend himself or herself. Okay? Then the bird or the hoppo, he already recognized Solomon's intention to punish him, because there is a communication. Solomon is talk to the bird understand what Solomon is saying, and he responds. He cannot respond without understanding, right? So he said, فَمَكَثَ غَيْرَ بَعِيدٍ. He was not far. He was not long before the bird arrived. So he was somewhere else, but he heard Prophet Solomon. It's just amazing. And then when the bird heard Solomon from distance, he already acted upon what he heard. He didn't let it go, but he came back to defend himself. And he said, I have found out something that you don't know. فَقَالَ أَحَطُّ بِمَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ. You see this message here. Here is an individual, a bird, and he is challenging Prophet Solomon. And Prophet Solomon give him the right to defend himself. So we are individuals. If someone is accusing us, we have the opportunity, we should have the courage to defend ourselves. We should have the courage to tell our boss that we know something you don't know. That's what it is. أحط بما لم تحط به. And then he said, I have just come to you from Saba, with sure news. وجئتك من سبأ بنبأ يقين. And he came with a proof, okay? And that proof, he said that it is sure news. It is not false news. It tells us the lesson that if we hear something like we do in WhatsApp every day, don't pass it on until you really believe or investigate that this information is new before you pass it on. He didn't come with a false news. He came with بِنَبَأٍ يَقِينٍ. He was sure, the bird, remember, we talk about the bird, that the bird is able to get news and to assess that this news is truly sure news, not false news. It's amazing, the story, and as you reflect upon every little piece of it. And then he told the news. إني وجدت امرأة تملكهم وأوتيت من كل شيء ولها عرش عظيم. This is incredible statement, very comprehensive statement. I found a lady ruling over them, and she has been given all things that could be owned by any ruler of the earth. And she has a magnificent throne. So the bird, he was able, his ability is to scan over the whole kingdom, because he made an assessment. He said, وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. I mean, this is an incredible, really, word. كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, from everything. I mean, this is a total comprehensive message that tells that the bird was able to scan and know that she got everything. She got everything. It is incredible scope that it need an incredible and fast scanning to know what she got. So that's his message to Prophet Solomon. And then he continued, وجدتها وقومها يسجدون للشمس من دون الله. I found her and her people worshipping the sun rather Allah. And that's really the essence of his message, that he found people that they worship things other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hoppo was really worried, or really, great news, because the bird is worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why he was astonished to see that this group of people is prostrate to the Shams rather than to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's really the worst thing that any can do, is to not to have really your dedication to worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the great sin. That's the ultimate sin. Because إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر لمن يشاء. It's the ultimate evil. That's the message of La ilaha. And and then the next, he continued his message. وزين لهم الشيطان أعمالهم فصدهم عن السبيل فهم لا يهتدون. And the devil has made their acts fair seeming to them. And that's really a very important really point to reflect. That remember that the shaitan have been promised to deceive human beings. لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And that's really the biggest challenge for us as human beings, is that the shaitan we will continue really struggling and looking to ways by which we don't get deceived by the shaitan. Because he said, the shaitan had promised, وَلَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. And really the decoration here, meaning that the shaitan or the devil will decorate your action so you think that it is good action, it's not bad. And that's really a very, very critical point, because there are some people that they do bad, but the shaitan come to them and say, hey, you guys, you're doing great. And that's a big deceit from the shaitan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mentioned that in many places in the Quran. And we read in Surah Fatir, أَفَمَنْ زُيِّنَ لَهُ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ فَرَآهُ حَسَنًا. زُيِّنَ لَهُ سُوءُ عَمَلِهِ. The bad things that this human being is doing have been decorated by whom? زُيِّنَ, by the shaitan. فَرَآهُ حَسَنًا. So he thinks that he is doing great. And that's really a big loss, because there are people get trapped with the shaitan so that they continue doing what they're doing, and they think that they're doing good, but really this action is no good for them. And we really need to be very careful as we assess and evaluate what we're doing, and do not be deceived by the devil. Because the outcome of that is فَصَدَّهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ فَهُمْ لَا يَهْتَدُونَ. The outcome of that is that has barred them from Allah's way, driven them away from the straight path. عن السبيل فهم لا يهتدون. Then they have no guidance. And that's why we always say, and at least 17 times a day in Surah Al-Fatiha, when we pray, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guidance to the straight path. And then he is really, the ayat continue, ألا يسجدوا لله الذي يخرج الخبأ في السماوات والأرض ويعلم ما تخفون وما تعلنون. Should they not worship God who turns forth what's hidden in the heavens and earth, and knows both what you people hide and what you declare. الله لا إله إلا هو رب العرش العظيم. Allah, there is no God except Him, Lord of the great throne. Then Solomon, when he heard what the Hubbo told him, all the news, okay, news that he doesn't know, Solomon doesn't know, meaning that even a small little bird, he knows what King Solomon doesn't know. Okay. Then his response was what? قال سننظر أصدقت أم كنت من الكاذبين. We shall see whether you are telling the truth or lying. So, and that's logic, because when we hear certain news from someone, we don't jump to say, oh no, no. We should take time. We should put an effort to investigate whether these news are true or false, and then make a judgment. But we see ourselves always, we hear something from someone, oh no, you are a big liar. We don't know. We shouldn't jump to conclusion, because Prophet Solomon did not jump to the conclusion. He didn't say that you are true or you are false. He said, sananzur, we will look, we will see, we will put an effort. Sananzur meaning we're gonna look, we're gonna investigate, we're gonna see. Okay. And then he told him, give him an order. Okay. اذهب بكتابي هذا فألقه إليهم ثم تول عنهم فانظر ماذا يرجعون. Go with this letter of mine and deliver it to them, and stand aside and see how they will respond. That's his way of really knowing whether the Hoppo story is true or false. And really it's interesting. اذهب بكتابي هذا. يعني what kitab is that? I mean, this is verbal, obviously. And Solomon is able to talk to the bird, and the bird is able to comprehend the message, so will be able to deliver it. Okay. ثم تولى عنهم, just to stand aside, give them time, and see how they will respond to the message. How they will respond. And then his message is إنه من سليمان وإنه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It is from Solomon, and it reads, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. That's that's really the message of Islam. The message of Islam is the message that there is Allah, the Creator, the most compassionate, the most merciful. That's the most important message of our religion. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. That's the message. Meaning that there is only one God, that He is the compassionate and the most merciful. Could you imagine? That's the message of Islam. Have the compassion and the mercy. That's the message of Islam. قالت يا أيها الملأ إني ألقي إلي كتاب كريم. It's a generous letter that has been delivered to me. So the queen, when read that message, she already was able to judge that it is Kitabun Kareem. It is a gracious letter. This letter is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And then the story with the Malikat Saba continue. Because of the time, I'm going to conclude with last two slides. And it's kind of summary of what we have discussed and reflect upon in this few ayat. The Hoppo was an intelligent, responsible, obedient, and most importantly, the faithful servant of Allah. He traveled miles and miles to recognize that there are people that worship the sun instead of worship Allah. Such a lovable duty is performed that Allah adds it in the Quran. A right path to be followed till the hereafter. This is what we need to follow until we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Hoppo was intelligent, responsible, and obedient. Sorry, it's repeated. But then, like the Hoppo, we must use our abilities to perform Allah's task. Allah have given us different abilities to convey His message to all mankind, which is, as I mentioned before, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. To call for the way of Allah. وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and do good deeds. وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. I'm going to close with a point to ponder. If birds have such keen observation, then definitely are noticing us too. You can imagine. Maybe the birds are watching upon us. The Hoppo was watching upon the kingdom of Saba. What they will be thinking about us when we disobey Allah. The Hoppo look at these people and say, oh my God, they worshiping the sun. They are not worshiping Allah. They disobey Allah. Moreover, they will also be able to witnesses for good or for bad deeds. We never know. So we must be careful. I'll conclude. Is there any questions, inshallah?